Hello everybody and welcome back to another Final Fantasy XI video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a build that I've been bringing to exactly one H&M camp, but it's pretty interesting, so I wanted to share it with you. Now this camping question is everyone's favorite purple dog, King Behemoth. And the build in question is, as you saw in the thumbnail, Thief sub Paladin. Now in this video I'm going to be going over the uses of this job combo, why I'm bringing it specifically to this camp, and we'll go over some gearing considerations as well if you are in a position to try it out for yourself. Hi everyone, I'm Quetch and welcome to my channel. If you've been watching my live streams, you would know that lately I have been testing warrior/paladin tanking. And working with this sub-job, I've started to become more familiar with its kit of self-heals, enmity generation, damage mitigation, and just overall the nuances of this largely unused sub-job. So if you want to see more on that topic, make sure to subscribe to my channel for future videos. Previously, I had been bringing either ninja or samurai or warrior sub-jobs to King Behemoth. You know, in the past, has it been like, am I doing meditate into weapon skills in order to put in a little damage? I mean, obviously you're there for treasure hunter, or do I want the extra attack from warrior in order to just melee into, a bigger weapon skill because of berserk, or just ninja in general for, just dual wield, really. I'd been experimenting with a couple of different sub-jobs, and they all had similar problems in that fight. First of all, thief damage isn't really that important. So a sneak attack into a weapon skill is a decent chunk of damage, but it's not like we're skill chaining into magic bursts. In general, it's just you could when he stops to cast Meteor, right? But in general, you just kind of want to keep moving for this fight, and you want to be doing magical DPS like black mages and summoners. So as you can see in this video, that's where the bulk of the damage is coming from. We don't generally melee it. I mean, the thing has a super potent flame armor, the spikes effect that will also just shred my health. So that's also a danger and a consideration as well. But number two, and probably more important, is that melees are less supported in this fight, whether it be through heals or bard songs, and that is because of the general nature of paladins kiting and black mages occasionally drawing hate, etc. You really want to support, and you really need to be on top of keeping your tanks alive, and keep your black mages from eating dirt so you can continue that sustained DPS. So I would find myself disengaging KB, going off into the distance, and just resting in order to get my HP back. So a couple of weeks ago, I was getting ready to head out to camp, and I was looking to pick a sub job, and I realized, hey, I have Paladin sub now. That could give me some self cures, and I took that out to camp in order to just be a little bit more self-sufficient. I mean, you're not really, you might be lowering your damage a little bit if you want to continue to do sneak attack weapon skill or whatever, but being able to keep topped off without having to rely on outside heals, or the mages keep splitting their focus, I figured this would be a fine sub job to bring out and try. But this is where I realized that a recent change to Thief makes this sub job choice a little bit more beneficial than it is at first glance, and that change is Collaborator. So if you don't know, Horizon recently changed Accomplice and Collaborator. Well, they're a little bit different from what they were in retail, but Accomplice does what it used to do, is it steals hate from a target, but Collaborator here, it shoves hate onto a target. So since my last video about these buffs coming to Thief, I have now had a lot of time to play with them. In all honesty, they've been just game-changing. When I'm now out at a Grand Worm camp or something, we're fighting Jormungand, the Thief's role is to get into the party and snatch hate from a white mage or red mage or whoever, and throw it onto one of the tanks. So we're now starting to cycle thieves in more regularly to the content we're doing for its enmity control aspect, rather than just being a kind of second or third rate DPS. What does that mean as Thief/Paladin? For this fight in particular, and I could see this being useful elsewhere as well, it allows you to play a sort of enmity support role. And I'm going to go over that here. So there are two main causes of wipes to King Behemoth. One of which is when someone pulls hate at the wrong time and KB starts casting Meteor and that player can't get out of range and, it blows up that person and potentially some portion of your alliance, usually some portion of your alliance. And what I would be doing is I would be finding those black mages that are high on that hate list, and I would accomplice off their enmity and collaborator it onto a tank. And that's like the obvious use case of these abilities. But here's the cool part with Paladin's sub job. As long as I have hate on KB, I can use Sentinel, which is going to generate some hate. Also increases my enmity gain for the duration of Sentinel. I can then flash and even shield bash if I want to, if I have a shield on at the time and I want to generate some extra hate. And then do that all prior to then using Collaborator on the tank. So I generate my own enmity, probably something like, I don't know, 1,500, maybe 2K, depending upon if I've been doing any extra heals. And then I shove half of that onto the tank. Preferably the tank that is in a good position where if KB looks at them at that moment, they'll be able to start kiting, and you really want to be paying attention to when meteors are going off if you're going to be doing this kind of thing. I'm just going to lay that out right now. You do not want to be the reason your alliance wipes in this fight. But that extra boost of hate from that sub is especially useful early on in the fight where tanks are taking a little bit of time to establish hate, and we may be getting thrown out extra cures from the mages, or enfeebles might be spiking people's enmity. So sometimes stabilizing in that early part of the fight is one of the more important, probably the most important moment of the fight, is getting stabilized, so that way you can start, DPSing. So fair warning, do not do this if you are unsure about when meteors are being cast. Also, Flee is your friend here if you want to do any of these enmity generating actions. Throw Flee up if you can run in for a shield bash or whatever, and then, or you can run up to the tank and Collaborator them and then bolt on out of there so you're not in range of Meteor, or the next thing we're going to talk about here, which is Thunderbolt. So I mentioned gearing, and let's talk about the other challenging aspect of this fight, and that is the stun from Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt has a 30 Yalm radius from KB with a rather potent stun effect. And the real nightmare situation of this fight is a Thunderbolt stun into an immediate meteor cast, which basically everyone in range is just going to get obliterated. But that stun duration can be reduced by either having resist stun, as shown on the Earring Arete del Sol, or more importantly, by stacking Thunder Resist. So right here, I have a set that is essentially usable on all jobs. It's going to give you a large portion of Thunder Resist. In addition to that, there's Bar Spell from White Mage and Carol from Bard. But if you are interested in building this set, go ahead and pause the video now and then look up the pieces on the wiki if you're not sure where they come from. A good portion of them are on the auction house. And specifically, if you're a thief, I recommend the Coral Trousers. But basically, optimally, you want this number to be 250 with Bar Spell and Carol. But again, I chose this sub job because Thief isn't very supported usually in this fight, so you can't really count on those things, but it is a possibility. But in general, you just want to get your Thunder Resist as high as you can, because remember, you're going to be in range. The overall play style of this job combination is paying attention to where the enmity is. Is it on your White Mage? Are the Black Mages just taking it too often? Maybe they need to start coming Sub-Dragoon, but that's a whole different conversation. But your job is to be aware of your surroundings and assisting with enmity control and actually spot heals as well. We'll get into that in a second. But this gives Thief a real true role in this fight. The other thing I'll recommend you do is set up a macro that's just /assist and then target on KB. And you can be the person who figures out who KB is targeting at that moment in time. Target lines also helps. One of the things about playing Thief in endgame, especially endgame fights where historically you were just brought in for Treasure Hunter, or maybe maybe you're doing a skill chain on Fafnir or Nidhogg or whatever, because in those fights you want light. These small pigeonholed places for you to play your job, you can now expand that and have more opportunity to play what I think is one of the most interesting jobs in the game. But you have to find ways to improve your role and be desirable in those groups. Paying attention to who's being targeted, call outs for Meteor, shifting hate around when necessary, building your own hate, and then shoving it onto tanks at opportune moments in order to keep the fight moving. Obviously, I've got a lot of footage here of our fight. We end up getting the win here. You know, it's just been a really cool thing to be experimenting with. Yeah, aside from that, the only other thing I'd say in terms of gearing is if you want to be very sweaty about it, you can actually use Enmity Plus gear, which Thief has decent access to. And I'll post my set here. It's not optimal. There's definitely more work that can be done. But I macro it in for the JAs and Flash and the cures in order to just maximize that output. But really, if you're going to be going this far, you need, and I cannot stress this enough, to have a thorough understanding of how and when KB uses Meteor and when you're shifting hate around. Just some final notes, quick thing about cures, because I mentioned that a minute ago here. Just having your own cures to keep yourself topped off and maybe tossing one and occasionally on someone who needs is incredibly helpful in this fight. Now, Paladin sub does offer auto refresh, but I also recommend maybe bringing a couple of Yaguda drinks just for those times where like you just need the extra MP regen. Like you get a lot of opportunity to rest in between accomplice and collaborator cooldowns for those playing those support moments. But that's going to do it for this video. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, don't forget to check my live streams either here on YouTube or on Twitch at twitch.tv/cmquetch. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, YouTube.